If you ever take a night shift job and they hand you a list of rules, do not ignore them. I didn't. And that's probably the only reason I survived my first night working security at that warehouse. Because around 3 a.m., one of those rules was broken. And that's when I realized something terrifying. Those rules weren't there to protect the guards. They were there to protect us from whatever was already inside the building. I found the job online. Night security guard. Midnight to 6 a.m. Minimal duties. The pay was almost suspiciously high, but the description made the job sound ridiculously easy. Sit in a security office, watch a few cameras, and report anything unusual. So of course I applied. The interview lasted maybe 5 minutes. The manager barely asked me anything. Mostly, he just stared at me like he was trying to figure something out. Then he said something strange. Most people don't last longer than a week. I thought he was joking, so I laughed a little. He didn't. Instead, he reached into a drawer and handed me a folded sheet of paper. "Read this carefully," he said. "Follow the rules exactly. Do that, and you'll be fine." That was it. No training, no tour of the building. Just the job and the rules. When midnight came around, I unlocked the security office and sat down at the desk. The room was small. Just a chair, a desk, a radio, and a wall of security monitors showing different parts of the warehouse. Before doing anything else, I unfolded the paper. 7 rules were written on it in messy handwriting, like whoever wrote them had been in a hurry. Do not leave the security office between 2:13 a.m. and 2:17 a.m. If you hear knocking from inside warehouse A, ignore it. No one should be in there. At exactly 3 a.m., the hallway lights will shut off for 30 seconds. Stay seated. If the camera labeled Loading Dock 3 shows someone staring directly at the camera, do not acknowledge it. Look away immediately. If the radio turns on by itself, do not respond. If you hear someone calling your name from the hallway, check the cameras first. If the office door handle begins shaking, hide under the desk until it stops. At the bottom of the page was one last warning. If Rule 7 happens, do not open the door, no matter what you hear. I stared at the paper for a minute. Then I laughed. It had to be some kind of prank for new employees. Still, I left the paper sitting on the desk, just in case. The first couple hours were completely normal. The cameras showed empty aisles and silent hallways. Nothing moved. Nothing made noise. Honestly, the job was boring. By around 2 a.m., I was already wondering why they were paying so much for something this easy. Then the clock on the wall turned 2:13 a.m. I remembered the first rule. Do not leave the office between 2:13 and 2:17. 4 minutes. No big deal. So I stayed seated. That's when I heard knocking. Not on the office door. Somewhere deep in the warehouse. 3 slow knocks. Knock, knock, knock. I looked up at the monitors. Nothing. Every camera showed empty aisles. Then the knocking happened again. Louder this time. Coming from warehouse A. My eyes slowly moved to the paper. Rule number 2. If you hear knocking from inside warehouse A, ignore it. My first instinct was to grab the radio. Someone could actually be in there. But before I could do anything, the sound changed. The knocking turned into scratching. Slow dragging noises, like fingernails scraping across metal. The sound echoed through the warehouse. Every instinct told me to go check it out, but something about those rules made me hesitate, so I stayed in the chair, At exactly 2:17 a.m., the scratching stopped, completely, like it had never been there at all. The next 30 minutes were quiet again. I convinced myself it had just been pipes or animals somewhere in the building. Then the clock turned 3 a.m., and suddenly every monitor flickered. The hallway lights went out, just like the third rule said they would. For 30 seconds, the monitors showed almost nothing but darkness. Then something moved. Camera 4. At the far end of the hallway, a tall figure was standing there, perfectly still. I leaned closer to the screen. The shape looked wrong, too tall, too thin, like its body had been stretched. Then suddenly the lights came back on, and the hallway was empty again. No figure, nothing. I leaned back in my chair, trying to convince myself it had been some kind of camera glitch. Then another monitor flickered. Loading dock 3. My stomach dropped. Someone was standing directly in front of the camera. A person, or at least something shaped like one, completely still, just staring straight into the lens. My eyes moved to the paper again. Rule number 4. If the camera shows someone staring, look away immediately. So I slowly turned my chair so I couldn't see the screen anymore. 10 seconds passed. Then the radio crackled. Static filled the room. Then the radio turned on by itself. I remembered the 5th rule. Do not respond. A voice came through the speaker. Hello. My chest tightened. The voice sounded exactly like the warehouse manager. Security, can you hear me? Static filled the room again. Then the voice came back. Something is walking around outside the office. My stomach dropped. Do not open the door, the voice said. Then the radio went silent. A few seconds later, I heard footsteps in the hallway. Slow, heavy, something dragging along the floor. Then I heard a whisper, right outside the office door. Someone quietly saying my name. I remembered the 6th rule. If you hear someone calling your name, check the cameras first. So I turned back to the monitors. The hallway camera showed absolutely nothing. The corridor was empty. But the whisper came again, right outside the door. Then the voice changed. It sounded like someone I knew. Then someone else. Then another voice. Until finally, it sounded exactly like me. Then the door handle started moving. At first the handle rattled softly. Then it twisted violently. I didn't even have to look at the paper. I remembered the 7th rule. Hide under the desk. I dropped to the floor and crawled underneath it. The door handle shook harder. Metal rattled loudly. Then something slammed into the door. The entire office shook. Another impact. Then another. Like something huge was trying to break its way inside. Then everything suddenly stopped. Complete silence. Then a voice spoke, right beside the desk. Even though I knew nothing had entered the room. You forgot the last rule. My heart nearly stopped. There were only 7 rules. Then the voice whispered again. There's one more. A few seconds later, everything went quiet again. No footsteps, no shaking, nothing. I slowly crawled out from under the desk. The clock read 3:27 a.m. Everything looked normal again. Then the radio turned on. The manager's voice came through the speaker. Calm, cold. Security? I grabbed the radio. Yeah. There was a pause. Then he asked something that made my stomach drop. Did the door handle shake? Yes. A long silence followed. Then he said something I'll never forget. You weren't supposed to survive that. My shift ended shortly after. I quit the next morning, didn't even collect my paycheck. But before I left, I asked him one question. What was the last rule? He stared at me for a long time, then quietly said, "There isn't one. Because if you ever see it, reading the rule won't help you." I drove home after that, but when I got inside my apartment, something felt wrong, because sitting on my kitchen table was the same folded paper, the one with the 7 rules. Except now, there was another rule written at the bottom. A rule I swear wasn't there before. It said, "Rule number 8, if you make it home," it followed you. And right as I finished reading it, I heard 3 slow knocks on my bedroom door. Knock, knock, knock.